This is the sound of my soul. This is the sound. Welcome back to the channel, lads and ladies, and I have so much to share with you all today. First off, I actually managed to say no, that's right, to a very spicy deal in War Thunder. I saw a lot of people complaining about the prototype T-34 pack. And they're like, this isn't worth, how much was it, 50 bucks, 60 bucks, something like that? It's like, hold on a second, kid. You must be new here. This vehicle is legendary. It's one of the most exclusive vehicles in the game. And yes, it's just a different headlight position on a T-34, essentially. But this was a vehicle that was part of a sort of a founders pack, I guess, for ground forces. One of the first exclusive premiums in the ground line, along with one of the rarest vehicles in the game, once more, the German Sherman. In fact, that was the first Sherman in the game. One of many. That tank is a great-great-grandpa to a mighty clan these days. But, there's so much to talk about today. Apologies to my friends who are in these replays today. I'm not going to be focusing as much on the action, because you may have noticed it's been a while since I made a video for you all, and there are a few reasons for that, and there's also things happening in the game of War Thunder. Update 1.9, what's it, is coming soon, TM. What is it? 1.97? 1.99? I'm sorry, I think it's 199. Anyway, 198? I can't remember how the updates work in this game. But something that needs no update, the cannon on the T-34 is still fantastic. This prototype version having access to the same gun as the early T-34 with the 75 that you can find in the regular tech tree. This is, once more, for all intents and purposes, an ordinary T-34. I think it has a few more engine horsepower than the regular tech tree variant, but that doesn't make any difference, especially in realistic battles. It is nice to see, once again, how nimble the T-34 is. I've mentioned several times what a meta medium tank this vehicle is, falling only closely behind the Sherman in terms of being a perfect meta medium tank for the game of War Thunder. If you're having some troubles with the T-34, those troubles will not last long if you use the appropriate tactics and tricks and have a little bit better luck with your teams, because that does matter. It's not worth complaining about, because there's really nothing you can do about it other than squatting up with some talented people. And if you're looking for names, there are some incredibly skilled players that come by the Toshio Thunder Discord. Come to the Thunder Zone, send in your own replays, and you can meet up with some of the people that send me this incredible gameplay. You can see that they're skilled players, and there's also a lovely community of friendly and kind people there. I'm really proud of what's going on there. So Discord link in the description below, and get that plug right out of the way. And yeah, that's the reason that I do this, is just to connect with you all. And speaking of connecting, I've never had to call 911 before, and I didn't do it this time either. So there was an emergency in my house. I have a 1.5-year-old daughter. I also have a 3-year-old girl, and my little 1.5-year-old girl got some immunizations. She actually got 4 shots all at once. And it had been almost a week since she got her shots, and she'd been running a low-grade fever pretty much the whole time, off and on, which our doctor told us is what you would expect. So she has a great doctor, by the way. Love her doctor. Actual friends of the family, but that's getting a little bit off topic. And I'm already getting off topic because I put my little girl down for a nap with a warm bottle and a blanket, and she was wearing a nice cozy onesie. Actually, it's Spider-Man pajamas, in case you were wondering. All of which was a mistake, because she was running a low fever, and under those circumstances, she got pretty warm pretty quickly, and I should have known. But we heard a thump in her room, so I went to go check on her, and it was just about the time she would normally fall asleep for her nap, and she was having a seizure. That's not what you want to see when you go to check on your little baby. Well, she's 1.5. She's always going to be my baby. So I picked her up, and she's like, seizing. And I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if she was choking. It's not likely, but possible. She was in the crib, and it's all safe in there. But, emergency, You don't know what's going on. So she was doing those things that people do when they're having a seizure. Her eyes were rolled back in her head. She was flailing. She was frothing. She was breathing wrong. And that was pretty scary. But I had to be the one that was in control, so I yelled at my wife to call 911. I checked her airway, so you put your finger into the side of her mouth and scoop it around in there to see if you can find anything. She was like wheezing, but the air was getting through. And emergency services responded very quickly to our house. My wife did a great job of telling the people over the phone what was going on, and by the time the EMTs showed up, which was within, let's say, like 2 minutes, it was very good, prompt service. I'm very proud of them. She was already, the baby was already upset, but she wasn't seizing anymore. She was waking up, and she was not happy. And that turned into a 3-hour adventure to the emergency room. I drove Zoe there myself, while my lovely wife took care of our 3-year-old, who was experiencing all of this along with us. And I took my younger daughter to the emergency room to get checked out. They did a blood draw. They took, they ran some tests to make sure that what seemed to have happened is what actually happened, and I'm pretty sure that's what was going on. She was running a fever. She's better now, by the way. We've been checking her temperature, and it was probably because of her immunizations, which it's normal to have a fever for those. And babies up to, I think it's like 5 years old, I guess, so into the toddler range, they have seizures a lot more commonly than older kids because of the way the brain is developing and such. And as a result of a high temperature, that's something that can happen. So it's good that it probably wasn't anything else, and there's no permanent harm done. It's a lot more commonplace for that to happen to very young kids, but that was pretty scary. And we'll still have to I've got to go run my insurance information by the hospital. We'll see what the bill is for that, but we got fantastic help from the emergency services, so I'm really happy with that. Now, replays, right? You've been watching QWERTY's in his newest toy, and now he has respawned in the regular tech tree variant. You can see that between these two tanks, the performance is almost identical, but the prototype T-34 is really worth it for a collector like QWERTY's is, as the gem of your collection. Again, it's one of the two most exclusive premium pack vehicles in the game. Gaijin has offered those at various times after the first time that they were offered as entrance into the beta for ground forces, and they really are just one of those things that collectors can get very excited about. I very strongly considered buying the T-34 pack, but I just need to stop spending so much money on War Thunder, so I passed on it. But I definitely don't feel... how do I put this? It's worth it if you're a collector, and it's really only for collectors. So, don't expect to get $50 worth of gameplay out of the prototype T-34. It's just something neat that you can go, hey, I bet you don't have one of these. And if you're willing to pay $50-$60 to be able to see that, then you already know why it's worth it. For anyway, moving on, QWERTY's having a great match here, and there's one more thing that I wanted to talk about before I get back into the action. This is some very effective medium tank gameplay we see here that is a result of, again, the strengths of the T-34 being played by a player that understands how to make use out of them. You could say QWERTY's having nice little vacation in some lower tier battles here. A very capable player, an experienced champion of War Thunder, and all the more happy to have light-skinned vehicles to punch through with his powerful derpy spud gun that you get on the T-34. And that one other thing that I wanted to update you all with is that my beautiful wife is very, very close to giving birth. Our little baby boy Joshua will soon be breathing the air of the world unassisted, I have no doubt. And she is days from delivery, and it's really starting to show. The woman is still working at the post office, by the way. She's a frickin' trooper. I've kept trying to convince her to start her maternity leave, but she keeps saying that the longer she can wait before she needs to leave work, the longer she can have with the baby after he's born. Until then, she's driving him around like a truck driver. And I am very happy to have her mom here, my mama-in-law. She's a total sweetie. She's super helpful around the house, and she's going to be able to be around when we bring home a brand new baby boy, new grandbabies in the house. So going to pick her up was a bit of a drive, but something I was able to accomplish within a day. So I've been so tired. The two girls are very needy now. They're just at an age where they want a lot of my attention, and they don't take as many naps as they used to. So that's that. By the way, baby Zoe has had no issues from her experience other than a slight mistrust of people that might look like a nurse. She was not comfortable for that whole emergency room time, but I was her hero there. She was a little bit more attached to me the next day, and that was just very precious because we're very attached to her. Now, is that a Sturmhaubitze or a Sturmgeschütz? Either way, around 80 millimeters of armor, tricky to punch through under any circumstance, and while he was aiming, our guy gets taken down. Now, Visky253, another veteran of the channel, in a veteran of the game of War Thunder. What is this, M26, I want to say, the Patton tank. This time, I believe this is the premium, or is it the regular Tech Tree one? How long is that cannon? Looks like the premium. Ariete, a nice premium grinder for the Italians, and a generally capable vehicle as well. The only thing that the Pershing, Patton is the next one, right? Am I getting this right? I get them mixed up. I get the Pershing and the Patton mixed up a lot. Their names are very similar, their profile is very similar, and their role and capabilities are likewise almost mirrored, even among different battle ratings in the game. Now, what you get with this medium tank is almost everything you would want in a medium at this tier, except for a little bit of maneuverability. You do want a little more mobility than this platform has to offer, and except for a little bit of firepower. It's sort of the Mario tank. Whenever you play the Nintendo sports games, Mario tends to be a well-rounded character that doesn't really excel, but does well consistently in that he doesn't have any serious weaknesses. Unfortunately, the American tanks at this tier lack the shortstop stabilizer that makes the Shermans and a few other American tanks of the World War II era so effective. And yet, with the right tactics, you can just ignore that the way you do in most of the other medium tanks in the game up to this point. You do start to face vehicles that can cause some serious problems for you, but Visky is going to overcome in this case. I think he titled this replay something along the lines of more background footage for Toshio's ranting. So I really should have put this one first in the order while I told you my emergency room story. But life has been very, very busy for me around here, and I have occupied myself with caring for my daughters and my wife, who comes home super exhausted, in case you wondered what the effect of working in the post office during a busy season that's like the Christmas season that just doesn't end. Everybody's ordering things online during this situation we find ourselves in, and she's also super pregnant. Like, ridiculously. Whoa! M18 catches some air, and a 90mm armor-piercing high-explosive round. Moving on. You know he did. What else was I gonna say? So I've just been trying to relax and actually spending quite a lot of time in Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord. A fantastic game. I loved the first major contributor in the series, Mountain Blade. Warband. Yeah, it's actually not the first Mountain Blade game, but it's sort of a mastering of the. Anyway, whatever. The thing I like about it is you can pause the game. It's not super challenging mentally. It just sort of engages you enough to sort of relax your mind and give you something to focus on that's not bottles and snacks and nap time and tablet time and untangling the girls when they're when they're arguing over something. My girls are fantastic and they get along really well most of the time, but there's just 100 little things that I have to do over the course of a day to fulfill my role that I love to play as daddy, and that's going to grow even more. And it's nice to have a game that I can relax to. Yes, you cannot relax to War Thunder. And furthermore, pausing is right out. So I've been playing this single player mode of Bannerlord quite a bit, just because it's more convenient for me lately, and I'm really excited about the top tier, high tier jets that are coming to War Thunder. I think that's really neat. It's sort of scary to see how point and click top tier is progressively becoming, and with the ridiculous floor gang, sorry, my dead legs need some repositioning. Ow. Oh yeah. I still think it's pretty cool that PewDiePie played War Thunder. That was pretty neat. But where was I going with this one? I think I got a little bit lost when I started rearranging my anatomy. Happens to the best of us. So once again, Visky just having that great mix of luck and skill. He's been very capable of noticing enemies before they get a shot on him in this one, and some very nice shot placement to go along with that. None of that matters against the bombs of a beer can, so he has respawned in something that's very, very capable of taking that down. The amount of firepower in this Italian so-called heavy fighter is truly stunning, as you yourself can witness. And with a couple of bombs just to spice things up on the ground the way you do, as well as a fairly ridiculous tail gun that I think that's a 20 mil, right? Anyway, it can shred things if you're not able to outturn them. The maneuverability of this thing is pretty wild, along with the unconventional design itself, something that just shines brightly in the game of War Thunder. And I was talking about top tier, wasn't I? But whatever. This is really where the fun is, and it's neat to see more helicopters coming to the game. And I kind of wish that we weren't entering an era in War Thunder where you can have a fire and forget multi-target anti-tank weapon systems at the same battle rating as helicopters, in the same battle as helicopters that have like a 2-kilometer range on their guided missiles, if that. So there's something called battle rating compression that affects helicopters so much worse than anything else, but just not enough people are playing helis to make it as balanced an experience as you want it to be. Helicopters are definitely hit or miss, and it's increasingly less about skill and more about tactics, which I think is actually fine in top tier. It's been that way for a long time. You actually need more skill if you're facing the same level of competence in your opponents at mid tier than you need at top tier. And what do I mean by that? You can see this here. Visky needing to aim carefully, needing to lead his targets well, needing to get hits where in the right places, I should say. Even in an Italian monster. Now, respawning in a BF 109, I think it's a G something like that. One of the Italian BF 109s, and you can tell from the bulges that it's a G model, I think. Anyway, it takes more skill to get the most out of your vehicles at mid-tier, because you have to do things like lead your targets, you have to estimate ranges. There's no laser rangefinder, 1 second click and then you know where to set your pipper. No, sir. And if you're off by a kilometer on range estimation, you're quite a bit off from hitting your target, sir. There are even vehicles that you can't penetrate from the front, something that is far less common in top tier, although certain vehicles get a lot of action because they do have those strong areas of frontal armor. But everything able to be booped on the snoot. So, what I'm saying is, mid-tier War Thunder is best War Thunder, and it always has been. Top tier has been an experimentation ground for a long time, and it's always been appealing. I remember that the first thing that I really wanted in War Thunder, other than a Sherman 105, which I got to fairly quickly, was the Mouse Tank. That was top tier way back in the day. And man, it was a totally different game back then. But that's okay. I'm actually pretty happy with where War Thunder is right now. I always get concerned when they add new mechanics to the game, because that means a lot of things are going to get shuffled around and be discombobulated for a while, and that's just the way things are going to be. The game continues to press forward in its identity as a game where you don't really see a lot of balance. It's just balanced enough that you can play the game competitively against other players and stand a decent chance. It's not really about that. It's about just having everything in one place. I think that's really where War Thunder shines, and we're about to get as many more modern jets and ground forces. I think is getting pretty fleshed out. We're not seeing as much growth there. I think there's going to be a focus on jets and helicopters, and we're really seeing that with the increased, we'll call this computer-assisted weapon systems with your targeting computers and whatnot, and now these fire and forget systems that we're going to be seeing in some of the helicopters. Those, I am sure, are also going to carry over into top-tier aircraft, as well as seeing things like that for ground vehicles, I'm sure. Helicopters are actually a decent place to test the mechanic, because they're one of those things that can be adjusted with a hammer, the way Gaijin likes to do, and it'll affect less of the player base than if they try to do something like that with regular aircraft or ground forces that are played by a lot more players. So helicopters are sort of a good testing ground for these ridiculous top tier mechanics, and none of that, by the way, has any bearing on what's happening now with Visky, other than to point out the fact, once again, that this is a tier that requires a lot of skill, and just not slamming into the ground is hard enough in this very heavy model of a BF-109. This was getting into the era where the 109 airframe itself was really starting to lag behind the times, and what was originally intended as a high-speed, lightweight fighter was getting heavier and heavier and heavier, and field modifications, upgrade kits, and the like were only adding to the confusion. But if you can manage to not slam into the ground, it's still more maneuverable than some multi-role fighters that you can find in the game. Cough, cough, America. So you do have some more options in terms of a dogfight, and as Visky has shown us here, you can deal some damage to units on the ground as well. You do have limitations that come along with that multi-role capability. You're heavier than a fighter really should be. Your energy, a fighter of this kind should be. Your energy gets spent very quickly doing ground attacks, so if an enemy fighter comes in, you're in trouble. And again, because this light fighter is getting heavier and heavier with every with every upgrade to the airframe. Quotes, upgrade. It means that, as you've seen here, it's a lot harder to pull out of these vertical diving maneuvers than you would see in something like the BF-109F series, but he pulled it off nicely, and then after that last strafing run, he went back to base and the match ended while he was in the air. MetaDave, now Cone's own, about to show us how to pwn in yet another Soviet frying pan. This time, a higher tier version of the universal MBT that the USSR seemed to be working with. They're all these low-profile frying pan skillet turret designs, great armor for a medium tank of their day, and a lot less impactful as they moved into the realm of lawn darts and laser rangefinders. My goodness, razor rangefinders. But you're gonna see some times in this replay where Dave is wishing that he had some APHE, and now is not one such time, and that was probably not the best angle to try and take on a chieftain, but he did get a shot on the foe and managed to bounce one in return, so we'll just call that a friendly handshake from Papa Stalin. Sorry, Papa Gorbachev? Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this monument. The perpetual best spot on this map. The monument is definitely a place to check out. My goodness, he's getting cast already. Is that an enemy helicopter? Good spray of rockets from the enemy pilot, still fails to take down Stronkist Sylvia Stalinium, still available after the passing away of Stalin himself. He needed to go into the time machine and go fight the Nazis on the moon in the year 2345, so we all covered for him and said it was some kind of stroke. Anyway, what am I talking about here? Now would be a perfect time for some APHE shot trap action, but instead we get a lawn dart into an ammo rack because MetaDave knows where to aim a beautiful shot and a significant splurge as he gets the explosion on that Japanese boy's ammo rack. One of the best MBTs at 7.7. Japan enjoys, as it has in the past, having some very capable vehicles, although with some rather thin lineups. and that's going to be the case in Japanese helicopters as well. It looks like everybody gets an Apache longbow, which is not a bad situation to be in, by the way. Love me some Apache longbow, especially with ground search radar coming in the next major update. That is going to be ridiculous. And yes, Hellfires are going to be getting their fire and forget functionality, I'm sure, at some point. It's kind of fun moving back into current events to see how Gaijin borks the Hellfire with every major update. You'd think they'd have it figured out, but watching some of the dev server footage, just is like, oh, Hellfires are fucked again? That's gonna be fun. Meanwhile, in Sturm country, this is not that. This is still, even in a 7-7, 8-7 battle, you're really still sticking around the heart of War Thunder. You're starting to get into some of the meme territory, but I'd say that 7-7 is actually a lot more comfortable for me than it used to be. Now, I'm not saying I want to be that guy hiding behind a bunker with a chieftain and what's the Japanese tank? ST something. ST. It's not the STB, is it? Is it the STB? Anyway, I don't want him looking at me, right? I don't want to be that guy. I'd rather be the guy in an M18 pulling the dang flank on a handful of panthers and tigers. That's just me. I'd rather be the guy that caps early, gets a few kills, and jumps into some casts for some meme time. But MetaDave is living his best life as Soviet tank captain Yuri, showing what a crew of midgets, I kid you not, when the Soviets were making their very cramped tank crew compartments, they came up with this idea. We'll just put smaller people in the tanks. Atypical Soviet solution. There are more people. Use them. Whereas, of course, with something like the American tanks, they're like, more crew space, better ergonomics, and we end up with these massive floppy boxes that look stupid but function well for a diverse and beautiful crowd of individuals that you find in the American Army. Yeah, okay. Maybe I'm being a little bit hyperbaric. There we go. Now, that's not the right word, but I want to use it anyway. No pressure. But MetaDave has just been pulling off stunt after stunt here in the whatchamacallit. I'm gonna guess, right? Is this a T-62? Am I close? Was I a good boy? I don't know, man. I'm especially bad with post-World War II Soviet MBT designations because they all look the same. This one I know has APFSDS lawn darts and heat FS, so you can live your best life now along with everybody that's using exactly the same thing in your tier. So proud of you. Your mama just wrote me a letter and said she was proud too. But, this is starting to get into the top tier madness in terms of ammunition selection, but at least not everybody's running around with a laser rangefinder and a targeting computer and a Death Star laser. And speaking of, behold the original Monsters of Cass. The original Monsters of Cass. Freaking big, freaking Soviet rockets freaking up your tank. Always nice to get a little revenge kill at the end of a match as things start to wind down. And the... oh geez, what is this? IL-28? Am I wrong? Again, my designations have just been horrible lately. I used to be pretty good at this. But then the number of vehicles in War Thunder went from like 1,200 to like 1,400, and I was like, you know what? I'm done. I can't handle it anymore. I just can't hang. So I guess that's what the comments section of this video is for. But overall, I have been loving all the replays you guys have been sending in. I mean, look at this stuff. It continues to be time and time again just these beautiful, exciting matches that you guys are sending me so that I can talk about my day instead of what you guys are doing. But keep those replays coming in. I've really, even with as busy as I've been, I have set aside time to record these replays so they don't get lost when the next major update hits. I've really been cutting down the amount of time I spend on Discord, and that's not at all because Daddy doesn't love you. It's just because Daddy has a family in another state. And I'm just so busy right now. Whenever Brooklyn doesn't want me, whenever she wants me to do something for her, I'll give you an example. She's laying on the couch. She's got her Spider-Man blankie. She's got her Spider-Man pillow. She has, what else? She's just totally relaxed, right? Oh, she's got her Lammy. And she says, "Daddy, hand me my tablet," and I kid you not, her tablet is just outside of arm's reach at the base of the couch. And she says, "I'm just so busy. I can't do it. I'm just so busy." So I walk over and I hand her her tablet and she's happy. I hope you all are happy and doing well. And I encourage you to send in those replays. I really have been enjoying them. And I will keep featuring them on the channel, once a week when I finally make a video. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.